take it away.
All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the January 14th work session of the Franklin City School Board. I call this meeting to order. I'm sorry for the delay. We're having a little bit of technical difficulties. And it looks like, I thought I saw, we should have a board member popping in momentarily. So I will go ahead. Like I said, I'll call this meeting to order and welcome everyone. First item up, 2.3. Do we have a motion to come out of closed session?
I move that the school board, having been in closed session pursuant to a proper motion, come out of closed session.
Have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Moving by ward, all those in favor signify by saying aye. And of course, nays and abstentions have the same opportunity.
Bob Holt, Ward 1, aye.
Marshall Williams, Ward 4, aye.
Terry McCreary, Ward 6, aye.
Carrie Johnson at large, aye.
And Amy Phillips, Ward 2, aye. That motion does carry. Next up is a certification of our closed session. Do we have a certification? Does anyone, do we have a certification of our closed session?
I don't think we could read the whole thing. I can't.
I can. Whereas the Franklin City School Board has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia's Freedom of Information Act. And whereas section 2.2-3712.d of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by this school board that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now therefore it be resolved that the Franklin City School Board hereby certifies that, to the best of each member's knowledge, 1, only public business matters lawfully exempted by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which this certification applies, and 2, only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered.
And I see Dr. Shelton is with us now. Do we have a second on that motion?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye, and of course, nays and abstentions have the same opportunity.
Aye.
Marshall Williams, Ward 4, aye.
Andrea Shelton, Ward 5, aye.
Terry McCreary, Ward 6, aye.
Carrie Johnson at large, aye.
And Amy Phillips, Ward 2, aye. That motion does carry. Next up are motions from closed session. Do we have any motions from closed session?
I move to approve the personnel agenda with the omission of line item 1.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
Any discussion? All those in favor moving by ward signify by saying aye, and of course, nays and abstentions have the same opportunity.
Ward 1, Bob Holt, aye.
Marshall Williams, Ward 4, aye.
Andrea Shelton, Ward 5, aye.
Terry McCreary, Ward 6, aye.
Carrie Johnson at large, aye.
And Amy Phillips, Ward 2, aye. That motion carries. Any other motions from closed?
Madam Chair, I move that we approve personnel item number 1 as written.
We have
Second.
a motion and a second. Any discussion? Again, moving by ward, all those in favor signify by saying aye, and of course, nays and abstentions have the same opportunity.
Bob Holt, Ward 1, aye.
Marshall Williams, Ward 4, aye.
Andrea Shelton, Ward 5, aye.
Terry McCreary, Ward 6, aye.
Carrie Johnson at large, abstain.
And Amy Phillips, Ward 2, aye. That motion does carry. Next up is 2.6, which would be the approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion in regards to the agenda?
Approve the
Move that-
motion as written.
We have a motion.
As written, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Holt. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Again, moving by ward, all those in favor signify by saying aye. And of course, nays and abstentions have the same opportunity.
Bob Holt, Ward 1, aye.
Marshall Williams, Ward 4, aye.
Andrea Shelton, Ward 5, aye.
Jerry McCreary, Ward 6, aye.
Carrie Johnson at large, aye.
And Amy Phillips, Ward 2, aye. That motion carries. That moves us down to item number 3, consent agenda. There is only one item on the consent agenda this go round. That is a budget adjustment in regards to funding. There was a slight, if you notice, and I use that word strongly, a slight adjustment to the 21st Century Grant. And then we have that $38,798 on the ESSR, and that's increasing that revenue and expenditure. Any questions in regards to these items? Hearing none, do we have a motion in regards to the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
A second.
Yeah, lots of seconds and firsts. Any discussion? All right, then moving by ward again, all those in favor signify by saying aye. And of course, nays and abstentions have the same opportunity.
Bob Holt, Ward 1, aye.
Marshall Williams, Ward 4, aye.
Andrea Shelton, Ward 5, aye.
Jerry McCreary, Ward 6, aye.
Carrie Johnson at large, aye.
And Amy Phillips, Ward 2, aye. That motion carries. Next, that takes us to item number 4, Human Resources and Federal Programs. Dr. Sterling, I will turn that over to you if you would be so kind.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm glad to see you all here, and Happy New Year to everyone and everyone watching. First, we'll have the human resource with Dr. Holleran. She's going to go over two very important items for the board. Dr. Holleran?
Good evening. Thank you, Dr. Sterling. First, I would like to share information with as far as providing a status update on the Federal First Coronavirus Response Act. It was signed into law March of 2020 with an implementation start date of April 1st, 2020. And it carried 2 new emergency paid leave provisions requiring employers to offer 2 forms of COVID-19 leave for employees. The first act and provision was the Emergency Paid Leave, Sick Leave Act, and the second one was the Emergency Family and Medical Leave Expansion Act. They both created a new paid leave entitlements for employees that were impacted by COVID-19. Primarily, employers were required to provide employees with up to 80 hours of emergency paid sick leave. And then the second, they were also required to provide up to, if needed, 12 weeks of partially paid emergency family medical leave under both provisions. It expired on December 31st, 2020, and it was not expanded. And in the right-hand column, you'll see a quick graphic that provided some information to the community, to schools, and throughout the facilities in Franklin City Public Schools. So all employees would be aware of their entitlements if needed and if they qualified. And these are the 6 primary qualifying reasons that an employee could have qualified under one of those acts for paid leave. Number 1, they were subject to federal, state, or local quarantine or isolation due to COVID-19 implications. If they were advised by a healthcare provider to self-quarantine due to those implications. If they were experiencing COVID-19 symptoms, and if they were seeking a medical diagnosis. if they were caring for an individual subject to order of one of those items described previously, if they were caring for their child who their place of care was possibly closed due to COVID-19 related reasons, and if they were experiencing any similar conditions that were specified by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, we had to consider and provide them with, again, the emergency paid leave. And how does that impact Franklin City Public Schools? Well, according to that status, again, as of January 1st, 2021, we were no longer required to offer either form of those emergency leave acts. If the division chose to, or if we choose to continue with implementing those voluntarily, we would have up until March 31st of 2021 to offer those provisions in that paid leave and to claim it as far as a payroll tax credit for utilizing that. For employees, those implications meant that if the division chose to continue with that until March 31st of 2021, that if an employee exhausted all of their sick leave, which was 12 weeks, was the maximum amount that they could receive paid leave under that they would not be eligible for an additional 12 weeks of leave as of January 1st. And primarily the qualifying reasons that most of Franklin City Public School staff members qualified for that leave were, the top three were their child's school or place of care was closed due to COVID-19 implications. The staff member was experiencing COVID-19 symptoms and or was seeking a medical diagnosis. Or the third reason, a staff member was advised by a healthcare provider and or a Franklin City Public Schools Human Resource Department or team to self-quarantine due to COVID-19 exposure and or implications. So as we can see, it ended. So now if an employee developed any of those symptoms, then these human resources have processes and procedures in place that we follow with next steps and address the situation with the schools and keep all administrators informed. Are there any questions about that before we move on to the next topic about our partnership with Camp Community College?
I have a question. So am I right to assume that we have decided to go ahead and continue this through March 31st?
We've had discussions. Currently, it has ended. All staff members who have been impacted thus far are able to work from home since primarily virtual teaching and learning is occurring.
Right.
So at this moment, we have not had to address it as far as anyone having to utilize any of their own sick leave. Everyone is, as of now, able to work from home due to the current status of the division.
And that is feedback that we would like to hear from the board, because as you know, those are funds that were not budgeted for. So we would have to pay that and we would have to bring it back to the board on I think it's what our next board meeting, so we can show you the figures. But if you would like to continue it, I'd rather give you the numbers first. And if you would like to just stay with where it ended, we can do that as well. But to make a more informed decision, Board Member Johnson, I would like to bring you that data at the next board meeting.
Okay, no, I just wanted to be clear because I wasn't sure if we were accepting the expiration date or because the implications and whatnot had been laid out here that we were thinking of continuing it. So I just needed clarification on that. But thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Slide. We would like to address and share exciting news and exciting partnership with Camp Community College. We have our Grow Your Own partnership. That's a teacher preparation program. And some of the key points or key aspects of the collaboration. Again, the partnership is with Camp Community College. All cohort participants will take coursework to earn an associate's degree in arts and science and education. There are currently 11 cohort participants that consist of teacher assistants and a long-term substitute who was working on her licensure. Franklin City Public School dual enrollment, Franklin High School teachers are the primary instructors, which is great. Franklin City Public School will use local and federal funding to support the programmatic costs, as well as Camp Community College providing support in that area as well. As far as the timeline, in fall of 2020, there were various and several collaborative discussions between Franklin City Public Schools and Camp Community College. Winter 2020, Zoom informational sessions occurred between Franklin City Public School administrators, the cohort participants, and Camp Community College staff, just to bring an awareness and to share all the key aspects of the program. Winter 2021, which is currently where we're in now, cohort participants are submitting their enrollment documents, and the Camp Community College orientation schedule session is currently being planned. And then spring 2021, sometime in March, we're looking forward to the cohort participants being enrolled in coursework and the official start of the program. So we've maintained ongoing communications with the staff and team from Camp Community College. And on the next slide, we have a few quotes from Dr. Atkins Brady about our partnership. The first quote, "Camp is pleased to have this opportunity in partnership with Franklin City Public Schools to enroll FCPS staff in the Associate of Arts and Science degree program in education." The second quote, "The partnership will leverage FCPS and camp resources to support and encourage these aspiring teachers to complete their associate's degree and transition to a four-year college or university to complete the requirements for teacher certification." And the third quote, "We appreciate that FCPS is investing to grow their own and look forward to working with FCPS administration and with these students as they pursue their career goals." And again, those are three quotes from Dr. Tara Atkins Brady, the Vice President of Academic and Student Development at Camp Community College. Are there any questions about the collaborative partnership?
I have one question. If someone outside of our division wants to get into this program, are they allowed to do that?
Currently, it's a grow your own with our teachers and our teacher assistants. It's an internal grow your own, not anyone external, unless they become a member of Franklin City Public Schools family and team. And then we're looking to possibly expand the program and they can participate from there.
Thank you, Dr. Halloran.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Dr. Halloran? Dr. Sterling, did you want any other feedback? Or did you want to have a discussion with the board as a board in regards to the extension or not to extend? Or did you want to wait and have that discussion when you come back to us in March?
Yes.
Wait until March?
The end of, no, March 31st is the deadline. So
That's right.
Right, the next board meeting.
Okay, so at our regular board meeting next week.
Yes.
Okay, that works. All right, next up is finance and operations. It looks like you got the next four anyway, so I'll let you continue if you would indulge us.
All right, thank you so much. Next we'll have finance and operations. And I just want to go back and thank Dr. Halloran for picking, and her team actually for picking up the Grow Your Own. You know, it started in around 2019 when we kicked off that nice luncheon, and we had at the village, and we had one teacher, Ms. Fly, actually go into the classroom, who was a TA, who was doing an amazing job at SP Morton right now. But it just really warms my heart that we are strengthening partnerships with Camp Community College, because I know that was a focus of ours. We were all trying to get together, but just really didn't know how we were going to work together with bringing programs to our schools. So now we have expanded our dual enrollment with Camp Community College, and now we have a specialized program with them that they helped create. It wasn't just FCPS. Dr. Atkins Brady and her team, I just want to just put this out there, did a great job with feedback. She was always available. Her team was available. And Dr. Lufkin, though some meetings he could not attend, he was there supporting us. And I just want to just publicly thank Camp Community College for their continuous support to partner with Franklin City Public Schools. It's a wonderful experience thus far. All right, I'm going to move on. Just want to put that out there. Next, we'll have finance and operations, Mr. Ryder.
Thank you.
All right.
Excuse me. I was asked to give an update on the CARES Act revenue that we're bringing in from the federal government. As you all know, the CARES Act was enacted by the federal government to alleviate the burdens brought on by the coronavirus. And there were three, up until Tuesday of this week, there were three main streams of revenue. The last stream in was the funds that actually had to be spent first, and then the other two have until 2022 to be spent. So it was called CRF. Stream 3 was called CRF. It was about $178,000. It was actually prepaid to us, so then we had to spend it or we had to give it back. And here is through December 31st. Actually, it's slightly overspent because we tried to estimate the benefits, and they're very difficult to, FICA and stuff like that. So, $595 will be covered by one of the other grants. And so it was all spent by December 31st. And just for fun, 3 days before it was supposed to be spent, we were notified by the federal government we had another year to spend it. So it's maddening. So that's stream 3. It came and went, and that's what we spent it on. The people, the guidance counselors up there that we spent the money on there, those people effective January 1st have now been moved into stream 1 where the dollars are there. You can see, the government, all governments, we all kind of keep struggling with this thing. This is stream 2 that, it was awarded, it was adjusted again, and then it was adjusted again. And so it started out at 88,000. Now we're up to 130,000 for this grant. So that's kind of cool. But we haven't started spending any of that. And so here was the original stream 1 that was awarded way back in April, I think it was. And so we're starting to pay people out of that starting. You can see the custodians, we started already paying them, the additional custodial staff on the first 2 lines. The next 4 lines are the guidance counselors that are now going to come from stream 3 down into this. And so we should be able to keep them till through 2022. And then some of the stuff down below, we purchased those items specifically for cleaning supplies and distance learning. Oh, okay. This presentation was created before we were notified of stream 4. So I think Dr. Sterling would like to probably announce that to the board. You got to turn your mic on though.
Jeff, maybe I needed to talk without that mic being on. We are receiving another form of CARES funding that just came through. I just had a meeting with Dr. Lane on Tuesday with all the superintendents. There was a bill for CARES that was signed in December 2020, and that released $54 billion down to the schools with CARES Act funding. And I'm announcing to you today, and you will receive the documentation once it loads into our Omega, and I think it already has. Franklin City Public Schools share of that CARES Act funding is $2.5 million. Now, with that said, of course their funds are restricted and you can only use it for certain things. However, it has a 3-year span to be able to utilize. Is that correct? To 2023. Approximately 2023. So we'll be working with the board to have conversations about how to best utilize those CARES Act funding funds, and I will provide the board with recommendations, but mostly we really do need to have that conversation within the next month or 2. Any questions? Is everybody still there?
Yeah, we're here.
Yes.
This is our biggest windfall yet.
Yeah, kind of a little shocked.
Yeah, really. That's great.
That is great. There are school divisions, however, that received $24 million. I know one received, I think, $36 million. So, of course, there are larger school divisions, but yes, Franklin City Public Schools, and it was no mistake, $2.5 million.
I have a question. This is Jerry
Wow.
McCreary at Ward 6.
Yes.
The spending of these CARES Act funds, then are they, other than the PPE supplies, are the things being purchased? I mean, they have long-term use?
And that's really what we're focusing on, making certain that whatever it is we're purchasing has long-term use. However, a lot of consumables are with cleaning products. So you have to continuously replenish those. Jeff,
Right.
do you want to comment on that? Because they're
Yes.
expensive now.
Yes, I mean, just today, just this week, we had to issue purchase orders for more of the, what we call them Ghostbusters, the backpack aerosolized electrostatic cleaners that, so if we decide to open up, we have to get those to shoot the cleaning solution into the air, and it clings to everything. It gives it an electrostatic charge. So these things, you know, we have to do that. We have to constantly keep up on the cleaning, and masks and gloves and the Tyvek suits, because you don't want, in the gas masks, that you don't want to be using those machines without that kind of stuff. And so we continue in the signage, and I mean, it just goes, the list goes on and on. Plexiglass dividers, you know, for all of our reception areas. So, one of the bigger ticket items is the distance learning technology that we needed to put in the hands of our students. And then we find that they don't have the right internet connection. So then we have to give them hotspots. And so the list goes on and on, but yeah, it's been quite a adventure trying to get these dollars into the right expenditures.
It would seem to me that some of the distance learning, that has longer term value, I would think. Would that be correct assessment?
Yeah, because, you know, they could be distance learning, you know, for the next year. You know.
That's true. That's true. All right. We'll make sure that we'll get that information to the board as soon as we have it, and we'll also provide you with the criteria on what it can be spent on. It really hasn't changed from the first CARES Act, but I want to make certain that you have those documents. All right. Next, we're going to move to the auditor's RFP process. Mr. Ryder.
All right, thank you. This is my first RFP that I put out for the division. So we had decided with the city that we would each get our own auditors. The threshold for professional services in Virginia that would require a formal RFP is $60,000. I don't expect this to exceed that. However, we are going through the RFP process just to get the practice, because there's a lot of RFPs coming up. And so we created it. And go ahead to next slide. And so we created the documents, like a 21-page document. And so our incumbent vendor, it was Creedle Jones. And the 4 items in blue are the prospective vendors that we have sent our RFP to. And then this is the time frame. So what I did was I drafted something called an authorization to procure. So I send that to Dr. Sterling to just make sure that she knows what I'm sending the RFP out for, who I'm asking. Is there any vendors that you would like added? Or are there some you want taken off? And yes, go ahead and proceed. So then on January 12th, we announced it and we posted it on our webpage, and we're in the process of sending the notice to the newspaper. And then there's the whole little time frame there. And I did find out yesterday, which was very nice, that Tracy Spence, I called her the treasurer of the Franklin Cities, and I said, so how do you guys advertise your RFPs? And she said, just put it up on something called EVA, the Electronic Virginia. It's this like state procurement website. And she says, that satisfies your entire, and it's free. Not 2 things. It satisfies your advertising requirement, and 2, it sends it to all the, whoever wants to bid on this thing, and all the suppliers in Virginia look to EVA to get RFPs. So of course, I went to the website, and it's like trying to navigate the Social Security Administration. It is just hundreds of menus. I don't know where to put any. They actually have a webinar and courses on how to use their website. So I've got Angie on that. We'll go the old newspaper route for this first one, but after this, we'll put this stuff in EVA. A little disheartening that PB Mares and Cherry Burkett have already declined to propose. One of them said that, you can't afford us. What do you mean? You haven't even bid on it yet. I mean, how much are you going to charge? So anyway, Robinson Farmer Cox, that firm audits about 7 or 8 different divisions around us. And so I have high hopes for them. So that's the timetable. Any questions on the auditing RFP?
I have one question, Mr. Ryder. Are we obligated to take the low bid, or can we evaluate the proposals as well?
We are not, because we actually aren't even required to put an RFP out for this. All we really need is a quotation from someone. But I will bring them to the board and say, here are the rates that the folks have submitted, and then I will leave it to the board to decide, to choose the vendor.
Thank you.
All righty.
When you stated the $60,000, is that the maximum?
Yeah,
cost
if
for-
a project, if professional services is expected to exceed $60,000, then you have to put out an RFP. You have to get at least 3 people. For example, the professional services for the architects, that's coming up, that the city awarded us the rollover funds. That's definitely going to be over 60. So I definitely have to put that out for an RFP, with an RFP.
Okay, thank you.
Wow. All right.
Any
All right,
other
thank you.
questions? Any other questions for Mr. Ryder or for Dr. Sterling in regards to finance and operations? Hearing none, it looks like next up, Dr. Sterling, accountability and testing.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. We'll have Dr. Carter. Are you here?
I am here.
Excellent. Thank you so much. He's going to go over the JVG grant, the CTE advisory plan, and the COVID-19 phase 1B.
Good evening, everyone. I just want to bring you to your attention a grant that we applied for in December, and it's Jobs for Virginia grant. Next slide, Ms. Moore. So the primary mission, and they call it JVG program, is to assist high school students who are at risk of dropping out of school, who have or other barriers to graduation, and provides additional support that enables these students to graduate and to secure and retain quality jobs. Next slide, Ms. Moore. The goals, as you can see here, is that, which is aligned with ours, is to reach we want more, but to reach a 90% graduation or GED rate within 12 months after the normal school time leaving. They will reach an 80% overall success rate with the participants on the job. It's either military or enrolled post-education or training at the end of 12 months. The target is to target young people who are unlikely to complete school or want to get a job, but who are also possess the potential for high risk behavior upon leaving school. And it's also focused on demonstrating and improving graduation rates, employment rates, reduce candidates for the juvenile justice system. Next slide, Ms. Moore. So the requirements basically is that you have a teacher and they will go over 37 competencies for the first year. So it's a multi-year program. They can either be in 1 year or they can be in multiple years. There's actually 84 competencies, but for this year, from February to June, the teacher will look at 37 competencies for career exploration. And then from that, they will help those students find employment in the area, in the surrounding areas. And so the minimum is 30 hours of contact during the second semester per student. And that includes incumbency instruction, career, associated activities. They will be provided with counseling and retention and successful completion of the program. The coordinator, the GV specialist, will also visit the sites because they will also help that student get a job, and they also will be monitoring that student for 12 months to make sure that they do not fail. Next slide. So The recommendation for this year is at least 35 to 45 students, which Franklin High School has already identified, male and female. The JV program can be offered for credit, up to 120 seat hours. That's up for the district to decide if we want to offer it for credit, we can. And then we're looking to start the program the second semester. And our goal is to get started in February. Next slide, Ms. Moore. So the qualifications is just a standard teacher's license, so they can be in any discipline, and just a valid driver's license. And of course, what's not on here, absolute love for children. So we want to make sure that we have this, and it's starting in February. Next slide, Ms. Moore. So we have been awarded $30,000 for the position. It's going to be part-time, and we are now waiting, because this is the email that they actually sent us. And I tried to speed it up to have it ready for the board tonight, but they're waiting for Governor Northam to finish signing it off, and then we should be getting some type of award letter by next week. Ms. Moore? Any comments or questions about the JV Jobs for Virginia grant or program or specialist for the position?
Any questions for Dr. Carter or Dr. Sterling in regards to this?
It's not a question, it's just a comment. I think it's a great program, and I see it as a safety net to help undergird our students that may not otherwise have support.
Mhm.
And Dr. Shelton, what we want to also is to connect it to our CTE program to make sure the children also get industry certifications so they can become more marketable. So we want to make sure that we link everything we have, and also even with dual enrollment. So we want to link it. So we want for career and college readiness.
That's great.
That's excellent.
Any other
The
questions?
question is, how does it relate to the Hampton Roads program? Or does it?
Glad you said that. The Hampton Roads program, there's a specialized criteria. So you have a certain group of kids that can go into that program. Well, the majority of the kids may not qualify. That's why they don't get into the Hampton Roads program. But the JVG grant, everybody will be able to qualify.
Okay.
That might possibly either not meet the qualifications for the Hampton Roads.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, now I'm here to talk to you and give you an update of our CT advisory committee work. And I just want to state that this is a draft. We are still ongoing, and nothing has been finalized or approved. These are still thoughts. And so I just wanted to make sure bring the board up to speed of where we are with that work. Ms. Moore, next slide. So the purpose of the committee is to advise, assist, provide support, advocacy for high school quality programs that prepare middle and high school students for a successful transition to further education and careers. Next slide, Ms. Moore. It started off as 2 goals, but as we started to talk some more, it expanded to 4 goals. So our 4 goals are expand CTE courses, expand business partnerships. We want to have CTE teacher recruitment and retention and incentives to see what we can do to incentivize to retain our high quality CTE teachers and to recruit more. We also wanted to attach student organization and memberships, and we also felt that was lagging and that we can get that done this year. Next slide. So we've already had 2 main meetings, and the first meeting started October 27th, and that basically was to introduce our goals, missions, purpose, and then we divided to subcommittees. And then we met again in December. And then at that time, I revealed a rough draft of what the work has come in for the subcommittees. And then we start working on a CTE application for criminal justice 1 and 2. So that's where we currently are right now. Next slide, Ms. Moore. You see here the work, this is the work of the CTE subcommittees. So you can see that we've broken the CTE and who are the members of the subcommittees. So while we have had our two main meetings, I've had several meetings with all of these subcommittees and making sure that we get the work done. So by the next time we meet, we have had our marker and making sure that we have gotten the goals that we've set. So for example, the expanded business partnerships, we are working and expanding, moving that forward and working and getting new partnerships. And I don't want to make it quite an announcement yet because we still have not finalized that, but we got about three things that I would like to brief you on next time if they come to fruition for us as new partnerships. But I will tell you what is finalized, the student organizations and memberships. We've connected every membership to every discipline that we have now so that the students have a way to go to competitions, have a way to grow, and the teachers have a way to help get their skills in hands-on activities. Next slide, Ms. Moore. So in the brainstorming session, one of the ways we thought is that we would try to maybe create a 10-day stipend that would have all CTE teachers report either 5 days earlier before the general education teachers and have the teachers leave 5 days after the normal contract. And what would they be doing during that time? They'll be setting up their labs, ordering supplies, establishing internships, business partnerships, other duties assigned, which will also include professional development to build their skills, their tool sets. The last 5 days, we'll look at closing down their labs and also more professional development to grow in their craft. The last bullet is that I've collaborated with the VDO coordinators for VocAd and trades to provide a high pool of quality candidates for criminal justice, cosmetology, and barbering. So we've had problems in the past of attracting teachers to CTE teachers to Franklin City. So he is now working with me to have an active list that I could pull statewide so that we would have a pool of candidates to interview and attract to Franklin City Public Schools. Next slide, Ms. Moore. So this year, we are now working currently on criminal justice 1 and 2. And then the career pathways is law enforcement, forensic science, a lawyer, cybersecurity. So those are the career pathways underneath. And we're looking to try to get that moving and in place for next school year. For future outlay, we're looking at cosmetology and barbering for the 22-23 school year. And we might even look at early childhood as we were discussing. Some people would like to see that as well, but I'm going to put out a survey later in February, the first week in February, which will have the kids rank their choices from grade 7 to 11. And we'll find out exactly what the kids are interested in so we know how to plan for the future. Next slide. The process of creating a new CTE course and timeline, I was stating that there's a survey that goes out from grades 7 through 11, and you have to do it within 12 months prior to the course. But I did talk to Mr. Williams at the state board. He said that if I can get him the application for criminal justice in by the end of February, we should be okay to launch for the next school year for 21-22. in criminal justice. And then you have to attach the industry. Can the industry, if we have criminal justice, can the industry actually support criminal justice majors? Is there employment out there for the criminal justice major? And so we have to show evidence of that. And then there is a separate application for new courses for each and every one. So every course that we introduce, we have to go through this process. And then I will work with Mr. Williams each and every step of the way so that we can move along, and he will give us feedback, and then we can hopefully get our application approved by the end of February. And our goal is to have it approved by March 1st, 2021, so that I can come back and announce that we have cleared that obstacle and that we're well on our way for the criminal justice course. So I just wanted to throw in a little data to justify why we should have criminal justice in this area. I did a little bit of searching research. It says with the crime rate of 39 per 1,000 residents, Franklin has one of the highest crime rates in America compared to all communities of the size. For small towns to the very largest, one chance of becoming either violent or property crime here is 1 in 26. So within Virginia, more than 96% of the communities have a lower crime rate. So that's some of the justification. Move to the next slide, Ms. Moore. And so I decided let me go ahead and get another source. Let me just compare that research with another source. And here are the key findings. And I thought about it because if I was a person that wanted to move into Franklin City and I was looking for a new home, this is what the internet is stating. And it's stating that, as you can see across where it says the overview, the livability, the real estate, the rentals, you notice that where it has a demographics, and they give each of them a letter grade, and they give the Franklin City Public Schools an A-.
Do you see that? Do you see that? Thank you.
So I just want to let you know
excellent data.
that the schools are rated an A, and you can see that overall what they rate the city, but you can see how they have rated everything in the city. And so you can see the crime rate is up at 57%, national average. Violent crime is down, property crime is up. And so you can see what the key findings are, where the crime rates are 57% higher than the national average. Violent crimes in Franklin are 47% lower than the national average. 1 in 26 chance of becoming a victim of crime, safer than 27% of the cities in the US, and year over year crime in Franklin has decreased by 15%. So it has some positives and it has some negatives. But what I really wanted to focus was that A-, that A at our school system. Next slide. So these are the memberships that I was talking to you about, that now we have for every discipline, because we didn't have it before, is aligned to an organization. And so that is already, I'm proud to say that is already complete. Ms. Moore, next slide. Here are our current partnerships, and we're looking at growing 3 more. And like I said, I don't want to announce them yet because they're not finalized, but we definitely want to expand this. But this is currently what we have now. Eastern Pavilion Nursing Facility, Portland Health Center, Camp Community College, United Way, YMCA, Bronco Federal Credit Union, Virginia Peanut Company, and McDonald's. And we want to grow that. Next slide. All right, any questions or comments regarding what the CTE Advisory Committee has been up to?
I have a comment. I love the way I'm on the advisory committee, and I love the way that it's organized and it's continually, flowing. But I'm really glad to see that, you know, this primary emphasis being on criminal justice, because within 25 minutes, in case anybody out there doesn't know, there are literally hundreds of jobs, you know, available at one of the correctional facilities. And then if you expand to 45 minutes right from where we are, you're talking about thousands of jobs that students who may not have an interest in pursuing higher education, they can leave Franklin High School and have a step up, you know, to get those jobs that, you know, pay fairly decently. So I think that this is a wonderful way to help our students. And also that second slide that you had shown about Franklin, Virginia crime, when it talked about, you know, employment being an F, if you just expand our area a little bit, you know, we're working to get our students employed and become productive members of society. So I think that this is definitely a viable option, and I'm glad to see it.
And just so you know, Ms. Johnson, there are 4 industry certifications that are attached to criminal justice. So the students will be able to be employed immediately after they complete criminal justice 1 and 2.
Awesome.
Chief Patterson and I talk a lot about the job openings, and he will tell you in Tidewater alone, there are over 1,000 openings for law enforcement officers, and the state police is approaching 300 openings for positions. So it's not going to be hard to get a job once they get through this program. I'd like to ask Ms. Moore to go back to that slide that shows the schools A-, please. For years in Franklin, we talk about perceptions. And the perception of the Franklin school system is that we are a C or a D. And this shows that is an A-. That shows the schools are not the problem.
Right.
So somehow people need to get that message out, and the things that Dr. Carter's doing and everyone on this program is phenomenal. I can't find words to express that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Holt.
This is Jerry McCreary at Ward 6. I just want to say I think this is a really good program. I've had several members of the community not familiar that the schools are offering this, but they talk about the need for careers and not just sending a student off to college and not knowing if they'll get a job when they get out. So I think there is a hunger for this in the community.
Yes, so we're going to push very hard and have this completed and ready to go. Our plan is ready to go for August. We'll be ready to go.
Dr. Carter and Dr. Sterling, and Ms. Johnson, because you're sitting on that advisory committee, amazing. This is so much more movement than we have seen for CTE in a long time. And it's tapping a segment of our student population that has kind of just been spinning their wheels for a little while. So it's great to see that growth. And just like Ms. Johnson was saying, you know, don't think just because you see criminal justice that means automatically that it's a police officer. It doesn't mean that it's a police officer. It could be, like Ms. Johnson was referencing, it could be a corrections officer. It could be something within the judicial system. It could be it could lead to going to work for the FBI. You know, there's so much, it's such broader coverage with that than I think people see, and because all they're thinking is police officer. So there's so much more potential there, and I'm excited to see that we're looking at shaking things up and bringing some things in other than what the constant has been within the division, to meet the needs of our community and to meet the needs of our students. So thank you, all 3 of you, for the work that the division is doing for this.
want to add my thank you as well, but also along with Mr. Holt, and looking at this slide and these grades, it says to me the necessity of the school and the city working together, because the school is on point, but housing, employment, crime, cost of living. So if someone's moving to the city, they have great schools, but how are they going to get employed? Where are they going to live? What about the cost of living? So that slide at some point, to me, should be shared with city council to say, this is why the school system, city council need to co-labor together for the betterment of our city.
Well said, Dr. Shelton.
Great job. All right, thank you so much. Excellent presentation. And I know that leads you into our COVID-19 Phase B presentation. Dr. Carter?
Ma'am, thank you. So Phase B, just want to let you know that Phase B, healthcare workers are A1 or 1A, and the teachers are actually 1B. And so the justification is, while the supply is still limited, the COVID-19 vaccine will be provided to specific groups of people over several phases. The Virginia guidance was adopted for Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. The CDC recommends that aim to one, decrease COVID-19 deaths and serious disease, 2, preserve functioning of society, and 3, reduce the extra burden of COVID-19 is having on people already facing disparities. Next slide, Ms. Moore. So here are the frontline essential workers under Phase 1B. And you can see police, fire, hazmat, corrections, homeless shelter workers, child care, K through 12 teachers and staff. So that's everyone in the division. And then you have food, architecture, including veterinarians, manufacturing, grocery store workers, public transit workers, mail carriers, and then you have officials needing to maintain continuity of government. Next slide. So in constant communication with Mr. Will Drury, the emergency manager has asked that we designate one person to be the point of contact for the district, and that the point of contact will have access to the Vaccine Administration Management System, which is called the VAMS, where you can register employees and they can make their own appointments to receive the vaccine. And Dr. Holleran will take that on as Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources and Federal Programs. And she will be the one point of contact for our district, because they only said we could have one. So Dr. Holleran will be taking on that task. And Mr. Drury has informed me that next week, they will, as early as January 19th, will be sending out information to Dr. Holleran, letting the teachers know, or for us to disseminate out to the staff of where the health centers are in the Western Tidewater area, so that they can make plans to go get vaccinated as part of the 1B phase. Next slide, Ms. Moore. Okay, so that is what I have. Any questions regarding the COVID 1B phase rollout for vaccines?
One thing that I will add, and this really is unrelated to the division, but one of our concerns, of course, has been all along as we're having these conversations about students coming back into the classroom, has been our students that live in a non-traditional household where they are living with grandparents in the house. And that's been our concern, is not just for our students and our staff, but for their families as well. Because of course, in pre-COVID, you know, Johnny comes to school and Johnny hangs around Sally, and Sally has the flu, and now Johnny has it and Johnny takes it home. Well, the same thing can happen in the environment of COVID. So our concern has been for those more susceptible family members that live in the households. And today, in the governor's press conference at 2:00, he did announce that he is changing that 1B tier to include those that are 65 and older. So that is one of the changes that came out from that press conference today. So if any of our families happen to be watching and listening to this, yes, we do want our staff vaccinated, but we want to make sure that those families are taken care of as well. So if you do have that person in your household that is 65 or older, they will qualify in that phase 1B. So just wanted to throw that out there. Sorry to interrupt, Dr. Carter.
No, that concludes my presentation.
All right, thank you so much. And we'll make certain that we keep the board informed when that Excel spreadsheet is completed and all of the information is mailed to our employees so they can move forward with getting their vaccines. Next, we'll have Ms. Burkhalter, Curriculum and Instruction.
Thank you. Excellent job, Dr. Carter. I see why you were excited to present all this good news tonight. Good evening, school board members. I come to you on behalf of Franklin High School tonight, and I'd like to start by following up. 2 months ago, I came to you and asked for your approval to move forward with us following the school board policy for the Franklin High School English textbook adoption so that the teachers could have up-to-date resources aligned with the new English standards. So we want to have the textbook adoption for grades 9 through 12. We would assess the students. We're starting with assessing them with this year, and we've been utilizing the materials that have come in that we have been vetting because they're already VDOE approved vendors. And that means that they, at a minimum, have all of their standards aligned with the text and the supporting materials. If you approve, not yet, Ms. Moore, thank you. If you approve this, we'd be able to get the materials to the school within 2 weeks, starting tomorrow if you approve tonight. The English Textbook Adoption Committee met for the first time on November 20th, and then they finalized everything on January 5th. The committee evaluated the textbook and the ancillary materials. Mr. Phelps wanted to use that educational jargon. It just simply means the supplemental materials that goes along with it. And then in addition to that, Mr. Phelps posted on the school website, on their Facebook account for the school community, stakeholders to also have an opportunity in addition to staff and the committee to review the materials starting from November 20th all the way to January 5th. We'll continue on our next slide. So the two vendors that we looked at from the VDOE approved list is HMH, also Houghton Mifflin Harcourt, and we currently utilize Houghton Mifflin Harcourt at the elementary level as you approved them last year for us to utilize them for kindergarten through 5th grade. And we also looked at Pearson off of the VDOE approved vendor list. The textbooks were evaluated under the categories you see in the bulleted areas. And these areas, as you have outlined in your school board policy, are also aligned with what they have to align with the VDOE to be on the approved vendor list. And the results from the committee, it was unanimous. They voted for Houghton Mifflin Harcourt 9-0 as their first choice. We'll continue to the next slide, Ms. Moore. Here we have our English Textbook Adoption Committee for Franklin High School, and we would just like to publicly thank them. As you can see, we had, following the policy, at a minimum, we had 2 parents, the principal in addition to the assistant principal, the English chair, and we had both English teachers actually on the committee, And then Mr. Phelps also felt it prudent for all state members that would be utilizing the textbook to include Ms. Adisi Cole, who's our adult education teacher, as well as our media specialist, Suzanne Bly. We'll continue to the next slide. So here we've attached the purchase orders for you. The first purchase order that we'll be seeking your recommendation and approval tonight would be for purchase order 21-426. And this is for the writable at a total of $13,685. And to break it down in layman's terms, this is in addition to Houghton Mifflin Hardcore text. We want additional writing materials. And this is kind of looking at it as an online usage program like iExcel or Achieve 3000. So this digital program that we would have access to for 7 years would allow our students to have the simulation of the SOL test that they take. Well, at the high school, they take it at the end of the first semester and the second semester, since we're on a 4x4, but it would allow our students to type their essays in, the teachers to give feedback to their word process essays. In addition to that, their peers can provide feedback. So it allows for the peer editing as well. Again, all of this is digital. If you go to the next slide, please. So this just outlines the specific quote for which we have just condensed down on the purchase order for you. And then with that, we're seeking your recommendation and approval tonight for purchase order 21-427 in the amount of $44,630.25. Here, this is where we will purchase for 7 years the access for the soft cover textbook. I know you're used to the hardback of the book, but remember now we're educating our students in 2021. And so we want our students to be able to manipulate within those books and be able to take those books home, utilize them for when they're preparing for tests, have their notes in there, bring them back to class so it can transition with them from the classroom to home, whether we're virtual or whether we're in the building brick and mortar. In addition to that, the great thing about having the softback of the textbook is that each year we get it renewed with this set price. And there's no additional shipping costs each year. The quantity that we have here on the quote, we can manipulate it. So we're asking for 300 license and 300 softback books for 9th through 12th grade. If Mr. Phelps' enrollment goes down in 9th grade, and this year he's requesting 75 license and softback books. Next year, if he goes down 10, he can ship them up to 10th grade. There's no additional cost to us for the shipping, the adjustment of the numbers, as long as we stay within our overall quantity. And we have here provided for you from HMH, from their website, a flyer stating this as well, since it's not explicitly stated in the quote provided to you. Ms. Moore? So at this time, just to reiterate again, I'd like to seek your approval on behalf of Franklin High School for the English textbook adoption for purchase orders 21-426 and 21-427 with Houghton Mifflin Hardcore, also known as HMH, in a total amount of $58,315.25, with our current textbook balance at $301,798.
All right, thank you, Ms. Burkhalter. So, board members, do we have a motion in regards to purchase orders 21-426 and 21-427?
I'm going to approve those two purchase orders.
I heard a first, and did I hear a second too?
Second. I couldn't get it out.
Mr. Holt is on it tonight. Any discussion in regards to these two items? Hearing none, moving by ward, all those in favor signify by saying aye, and of course nays and abstentions have the same opportunity.
Bob Holt, Ward 1, aye.
Marshall Williams, Ward 4, aye.
Andrea Shelton, Ward 5, aye.
Gary McCreary, Ward 6, abstain.
Carrie Johnson at large, aye.
And Amy Phillips, Ward 2, aye. That motion carries. Thank
Thank
you
you
very
all.
much.
No, thank you. I know Mr. Phelps is texting Ms. Duval and Ms. Townsend right now. So before we transition to the next slide, as you can see, before we go there, thank you, Ms. Moore. You can see our current balance is $301,798. Thank you for your approval. So we're going to go ahead and deduct the $58,315.25. With that being said, we'll transition to the next slide. At this time, I'm bringing to your attention for our first reading, we'd now like to transition Franklin High School to move for a textbook adoption process for science. And the reason for that is, as of July 1st, new standards will be implemented. And we'd like to start the process now so that we can come back to you early spring, hopefully get your approval, order the materials, and we have them here before the end of the school year so that we can train the teachers and they will be ready to go for the new academic school year. So what we've done here for you, if we have just put the policies back to let you know that we're aware we need to follow policy IIAA. In addition to, if Ms. Moore will continue on, we will also follow policy IIAA-R. And we've started the process. We've, with 1 and 2, we have contacted 2 vendors. We're going to contact 1 more to narrow it down to 1. The committee has started holding meetings with those vendors while we're waiting for the materials to come in that we've ordered so that we can have them out for all of our stakeholders viewing. You continue on, Ms. Moore. Yes, so this is part of policy IIAA-R that we'll be implementing as well, as I said. And currently the 2 vendors that we're looking at is Discovery Education and Savvis, formerly known as Pearson, which we actually had that vendor meeting with them yesterday. So here's our textbook adoption committee. So again, aligned with the school board policy, we do have 2 parents. We've switched and now we have Ms. Phillips on this committee. Thank you. As well as Ms. Beal. We have the math teachers, the department chair, as well as the co-chair and then administrative team. So again, we just like to bring to your attention that we've started the process to bring it to you to vote on for your recommendation and approval in the spring for the science textbook adoption at Franklin High School. Are there any questions at this time? Thank you for your time.
How often do they change standards? Because I've noticed the English standards were 2017. You stated that science is getting ready to change standards. So is it on a certain schedule or is it random?
Yes, typically every 7 years.
Okay.
They review.
Yes. And that's why our vendors license are 7 years.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Great question. Any other questions? Thank you for your time. Have a good evening.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you, Ms. Burkhalter.
Thank you so much. Outstanding as usual. I'm glad
All right.
those English textbooks. So I appreciate that, board members. Thank you so much.
Looks like up next would be the report of the superintendent, Dr. Sterling.
Okay. Thank you so much. The report of this that I have that I've been focusing on quite a bit since the last time we met in the fall was our reopening plan, returning back to school. And I would like to present to the board our phase-in plan for Franklin City Public Schools. As you know, before I get started, as you know, COVID cases, even though we had the vaccine, have been trending upward in our area, especially in Franklin City. So before I get started, Ms. Moore, could you please share the dashboard screen? So for the school matrix, as you remember, Dr. Todd Wagner provided this information, and we're looking at the school matrix every day when it comes to Franklin City Public Schools. So if you can scroll down, it should go right to our here we are. So the risk of transmission in school levels. So as you can see, you have lower risk, the green, the moderate, the higher risk, and the red. Ms. Moore, do you see where it says Accomack? Can you please go to Franklin City? So we can just talk from the data. There you have it. Now let's see what Franklin City is. We're going to just stop right there, go up a little bit up, a little high. Oh, you're fine, just go up. Oh, you're on Accomack, go down. There you have it, there you have it. Thank you so much. You move so fast, Ms. Moore. All right, so here's the transmission rate, the COVID identifiable rate, and the only thing that is in green is the percentage of hospital inpatient beds in our region. The percentage change in new cases are in the high red area. And as you can see, the percentage of RT-PCR tests that are positive, the COVID tests that are positive in the last 14 days are still in that yellow. Can you please go up to the chart? No, go down. I'm sorry, I said up, go down. Thank you so much. Go down. Let's show them where the red is high risk, and let's go down a little bit more. And the yellow is the highest risk is red, and the higher risk of transmission is in yellow. And that's really where we are at this time. And we did talk about, as a governance team, coming back and reviewing the data. So with that said, the data has not changed. Within the last 14 days, it has stayed at the highest risk levels and higher risk levels. And with that information, I would like to present to you the plan for the proposed, phase-in plan for returning back to school. Okay, thank you. Every plan should start with a conversation and meeting of all stakeholders. So at this time, I am meeting with student stakeholders and town halls. Faculty and staff stakeholder meetings have already begun, and I have pulled a lot of information from those meetings. The last meeting is tomorrow. However, the principal has already started front-loading the staff. I have parent and community stakeholder meetings because this information and data is ongoing, just and ever evolving, just like this plan. So as you can see, I wanted to make certain that the board members know that we are having in-depth conversations that continue to help shape this plan. Now you have you can go to the next slide. FCPS returning back to school proposed phase-in plan. So first we talked to the faculty, I talked to the faculty and staff, and there's a lot of concern about tier 1 teachers. So we're putting a survey back out to all of our teachers. And when we talk about tier 1 teachers, we're talking about teachers that are at the highest risk, that have pre-existing medical conditions, because we want to know what's actually happening with our staff so we can plan accordingly. So we're going to get that information, and that launches from the Human Resource Department on the 25th. Next, we have our parent survey. We're going to send that back out from February 1st to the 5th. Again, checking the pulse of our families. How do you feel about your children coming back to school, or would you keep them back? And would you allow them to stay on a virtual learning model? So that's going out to our families through the mail, and it will be done electronically. Now, we just got finished talking about vaccinations for our teachers that are in phases 1B, but we want to make certain that we provide our teachers with enough opportunity and time to get the vaccines. So we will be working with our health department. We will be working with our city. We'll give the teachers all of the information that we have in print form, and we could be posted on our website, as well as mailed to them individually, where they can go if they decide to get the vaccine. So the first round, we are talking to our faculty and staff of giving them from the 1st to the 28th, which is the month of February, to get their first phase at least of the vaccine. Second phase, we would like to plot out from March 1st to March 31st. FCPS will follow the VDH, the Virginia Department of Health Phase 1B distribution plan. Phase in plan review with school board. We'd like to come back and review our phase in plan for students to physically come back to class. So first and foremost, because of the data, I would like to recommend that our teachers, faculty, staff, and students do not return to in-person instruction at least into the fourth 9 weeks. The third 9 weeks would continue to be done virtually, and it would be dedicated to making certain that our teachers have enough time to make the right decision for themselves and their families to get the vaccine. And because there is such a waiting period of either 21 or 22-day waiting period between each vaccine, this would also give our teachers enough time to get that vaccine acclimated to their bodies. And if there are any type of anything that happens to them, then they can make certain that they address that accordingly. And we pray that nothing does. So with that said, if the board approves us working this plan for the third 9 weeks to remain virtual with the phase-in plan of coming back the fourth week, and the purpose is to ensure that all of our teachers and staff have enough opportunity to receive the vaccine, the phase-in plan is as follows. Bring back the plan to the board, of the plan that we're asking you to approve now, just making certain that the data hasn't changed too much, on April 1st, which is a school board work session. April 2nd is Good Friday, so we would not have school. Through the 9th, we go right on into spring break. So that encompasses Good Friday and spring break. That next week, April 12th through the 16th, we would like teachers to come back at a 50% capacity to go into their classrooms, sanitize if they like, but of course our custodians will be doing that for them, but some people like to add their own touch, which is fine. We have enough supplies for our teachers to be able to space out their classrooms where they feel is conducive to the 6 feet, and making certain that everything is in order and where it needs to be. And the reason why we're giving a week is because all teachers, we do not want to be in the building at the same time. We want to gradually bring our teams back so they're comfortable when they're at 100%. So again, we're following that motto to go slow, to move forward at a consistent pace. And I'm not going to say fast, because we don't want to do anything fast while we're in a pandemic. The next week, our teachers will focus on staff transitions and PD. So there's going to be a lot of professional development. We really need to go back through classroom management. We need to talk about who's in the hall, how are we walking down the hall, who's using what bathrooms and different types of facilities in the building. And that's hard to do when you imagine kids being there. But when you actually have them in the buildings, our teachers will be able to, when our teachers are in the building, we'll be able to do that transition along with curriculum and instruction PD. Next, you have the hybrid phase in model that will begin April 26th. We would like, from the surveys, for the parents that say, yes, we want our children to come back, if our parents are in agreement and they feel comfortable with sending their children back, we are looking on April 26th to return grades pre-K, kindergarten, first, second, third grade, SPED, L, students for SP Morton only, not JP King, not Franklin High School. They will be phased in. because we want to make certain that we have adequate transportation. We want to work with our students with an in-person model, and we don't want to bring back 100% capacity in the building at one time. So we'd like to phase in our children with the hybrid model. So the hybrid model would be our original model, 2 days in class. And for those that decide to stay home because they do not want their children coming back in, which is fine, we will support you and accommodate you. Therefore, the 2 days off will be our teachers doing virtual learning, 100% either in the class or from home. And that is for SP Morton only, starting April 26th. Now, once they're in school for a good 2 weeks, then we get into a routine. We would like to propose to phase in for the second phase, we'd like to go to the second phase, which would start May 10th, phasing back in grades 6 and 7, and high school specific content courses, which is Algebra 1, and I'm sorry for Algebra 2, which would only be Algebra 1, and Geometry would start the beginning of the hybrid schedule. Again, working with our teachers, our students and families, and not bringing back 100% capacity in the buildings, but starting at 50 and slowly transitioning people into the building. Next, we have phase 3, which start on May 17th, high school specific content courses in English 11 and science labs. And phase in 1 and 2 students will continue with the hybrid schedule. So you have, I'm going to make one correction, and I do, one correction for the high school will be 9th grade for May 17th. Mr. Phelps, are you on my presentation right now?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, correct me, please. It was May 17th because we took out the 9th grade and we were supposed to put that in.
Okay, so you want to include English 9? Is that what you're saying? Or
no, this was English 11 and science labs. Just
correct.
making certain because that's what we agreed.
Yes, correct.
Okay, excellent.
That's exactly what we talked about.
Excellent. Okay. And then you have phase 4, June 1st, 2021. Thank you, Mr. Phelps. Grade 8th would transition back. So you would have students continue on a hybrid model, 2 days in, 2 days out, professional development for our teachers on Friday. Because we are still in a pandemic and we are very, very fortunate and pleased that we now have a vaccine that still does not quell the fears of a lot of our teachers, but this plan, our teachers actually embraced. They were appreciative of. They felt it was a doable plan. They felt that we had their best interest at heart because the phase-in plan would not bring them back to school 5 days a week. It would bring them back to school on the original hybrid model that we presented to the board in August, which would be the 2 days in person, 2 days off, and 1 day of virtual learning. Now, as you can see, grades 4 and 5 will not be returning. They will stay virtual, and grades 12 will remain virtual. By the time we get back for to phase back in for grade 12, they should be taking their CTE examinations and the remainder of their SOLs if they even have any. So their year is really wrapping up and coming to a close. So we don't really want to phase them back in when they're doing well and everybody's moving forward with virtual learning. Now, the reason why I've talked to SP Morton and they made the recommendation, and I thought it was an excellent recommendation to keep grades 4 and 5 virtual, because at this time, both grades 4 and 5 occupy the modules. And that is a closed-in quarters, and for health and safety reasons, it would not be conducive to bring them back and put them out in the modules when we're trying to phase those modulars out due to other issues that always comes up in the modules with air quality. So it's okay. Post-pandemic, we were fine, but I don't want to take that chance while we're in one and coming out of one for our teachers. And I proposed that to SP Morton, and they were very appreciative. Well, actually, SP Morton proposed that to me, and I did take that into consideration, and that's why you have it on our PowerPoint this evening. So next, as I stated, the hybrid model will continue, and here's an example. In-person instruction 2 days per week, virtual instruction 2 days per week for those that do not want to come back, which they're doing the 2 days right now, so nothing really will change. Professional development and deep cleaning on Fridays, and then you have your example of pre-K, kindergarten 1 and 2 will come to class on Monday and Tuesday. Virtual instruction for 2nd and 3rd grade would happen on Monday and Tuesday. So when your pre-K, kindergarten, and 1st grade stay home on Wednesday and Thursday, your 2nd and 3rd graders would be in the building. So therefore, you would never have over 50% capacity in that building at any given time. So therefore, we can spread them out. There's a lot more bathroom facilities that they can use. And we could definitely keep that 6 feet happening in the classes. All right, I'm gonna move on. I'm almost finished with this recommendation to the board. Because I'm proposing that we come back on a hybrid model, it is so important to start immediately recouping that learning loss. Therefore, we're going to start pre-registration for all summer school programs June 7th through the 11th. Summer school programs will be held between the dates of July 5th and August 20th. We'd like to hold 4-week programs for our youngest learners all the way into our senior learners. Therefore, we would like to run ACE Academy 3 days a week at SP Morton. Heavy reading and mathematics focused 4 weeks, Monday and Wednesdays. The teachers will also work Thursdays for professional development and data analysis. Targeted population, Tier 2 and Tier 3 students. Pre-K, K1 and 2. Summer school regular at SP Morton 4 weeks for grades 3, 4, and 5. So because we're coming back on that hybrid model, it was the recommendation, we still want to bridge them immediately into a summer school program. So it's not like they're coming back on a hybrid and then they have 2 months off. No, we're trying to keep all of our children in at least an additional 4-week summer school program. Next, you have a summer bridge program. Excellent. Next, you have a summer bridge program, which is a 4-week program. Again, Monday through Wednesdays. Teachers will work 4 days for data analysis. And of course, again, still deep cleaning. The target population is rising 6th graders, which are our 5th graders now that are going to 6th grade, and our rising 8th graders that will be 9th graders, which are called, our rising 9th graders at FHS for 4 weeks. And then Mr. Phelps will conduct his traditional summer school programs that he normally does at FHS, which would be either remediation, SOL, project graduation, 4-credit summer school, and with the emphasis on Spanish 2, which has been for the last 3 years, and English 12 for original credit. This is my recommendation with the support of faculty and staff at FCPS. And I would like to present that to the board for consideration to remain virtual for the next 9 weeks, which is the third 9 weeks, and rephase back into school after, April 12th on a hybrid model. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Sterling. Board members, I'm sure there are questions, so I will open the floor up for questions and discussion.
This is Jerry McCreary, Ward 6. In the beginning, I think you mentioned there would be a survey to go to parents. Has that already been done, or is it to be done?
Yes, we've surveyed our parents at least twice this year. So we have a number of students already recorded that would come back to in-person learning and those that would stay out virtual. But because we've had at least 4 to 5 months in between that last survey, we want to survey our parents again to see if they feel the same way.
Is that survey results available by board?
Yes, and I can send them to you. We did that. I presented that in August.
Right. Okay.
I can get that to you.
I'm not sure if I was yet on the board
I
at
don't
that
think
time.
so.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else?
So, yes, I do. This is Carrie Johnson at large. So tonight, since there are additional surveys going out to teachers and parents and whatnot, it notes that the plan review will come back April 1st. So am I understanding that we're asked to approve this initial timeline, but we'll actually approve either a virtual or hybrid phase-in on the 1st when we meet?
That's what I'm asking. Yes, ma'am. I'm asking
Okay.
for a recommendation to approve the third 9 weeks remain virtual, revisit this data, and be ready to come back after the 12th if the data dictates that we can, and we have the majority of our teachers vaccinated. They're coming back focused on making certain the rooms are clean, the whole phase-in process.
Okay. So again, I'm sorry, I don't mean to belabor this. So we're being asked to approve third 9 weeks to continue to stay virtual. And then really we're only approving up to April 1st on this timeline. Is that correct?
You can approve, you can do what you want to do, Ms. Johnson. Yes, you can approve up to April 1st.
No, I'm just saying.
Or you can approve if in your motion, if the data states that students can come back, we can either revisit it earlier, but we just have to be able to have our teachers, how do you say this, on notice and enough time. So maybe I should push it back just because maybe it should be the last week in March that I bring it back. Last board meeting in March.
I mean, I'd honestly even be okay with that, but I'm just, one voice. But yeah, I'm okay with it. I know we haven't voted on it yet, and I'm okay with the way everything looks after April 1st. I just didn't want to lock in anything until that data came back. That's all. So I wasn't sure how to phrase it.
Well, let's look at, no, that's excellent. Board members, you only have one voice, and you're right, but it's a strong voice and it's a good recommendation. And I would like to look at that, board members, if you don't mind, if I can make an adjustment to that. Thank you so much for that. Our last board meeting would be on the 18th. So to bring that information back to the board on March 18th, which would be 3 weeks almost before the original start of after April 12th. So I'll just make that adjustment at this time instead of April 1st, the 18th, March 18th.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, what you're looking for is to reconvene and discuss on March the 18th, and in the interim to remain virtual for the third 9 weeks.
Yes. Yes.
Any other questions or discussions for Dr. Sterling? And please, if you do, absolutely voice those questions and concerns.
No, I like the fact that there's also a tentative summer program in there, so that, like you said, they won't be coming back for a few weeks and then having a couple of months off. So we're really working on that continuity of learning. So I'm glad to see that summer is talked about in here as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion?
This is Jerry McCreary, Ward 6. I think the schedule looks good, but I would, like was previously stated, like to have an understanding of the results of the parent survey before the fourth 9 weeks.
Absolutely. The survey that we do on February 1st through the 5th, you will have preliminary data on the 4th, because it'll close that Friday, and we have a board meeting on February 4th.
Mm-hmm.
Very good.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else have any questions or any discussion? Dr. Sterling, I have one question. So, and I'm looking at the timeline, and I think it's a very, very thought out timeline. And I know with the vaccine, one of those requires 28 days between the first and the second dose. And I think the other one is 3 weeks. And I was seeing today that Pfizer's getting ready to roll theirs out, and theirs is a one and done. So it only requires one shot. So if by chance all of our staff is vaccinated with their second dose by early March, would you be, and the numbers, because the numbers play into that too,
Mhm.
and the data, our caseload is dropping off and not rising, would that give you, how do I want to phrase this? Would you then look at it and say, okay, well, maybe what we'll do is move that setup of the classrooms up to right before spring break so that we can come off of spring break and roll back in?
Well, being out that long, you already know it's psychological. So I wouldn't do that, because psychologically I would have to bring in teams, clean that building, because the teachers need to feel safe.
Mm-hmm.
So I probably wouldn't do that.
Okay.
And because this vaccine is so new to all of us, I think we honor our teachers by giving them enough time to at least get the vaccine and see how it works with their bodies. Because we have teachers that are taking other medications. I have teachers that are pregnant that can't take the vaccine. So during this time, I'm not just waiting for people to get vaccines. I'm waiting to see, how do I move people around just to support the teachers that are in tier 1 that may not be able to come back. So we're going to need that time. Coming back, as some divisions are just saying they're coming back February 8th, I don't know how you can support your teachers feeling safe by making a call like that.
And our staff, because like you alluded to, we may have some staff that still have underlying medical conditions that may prevent them from being able to have the vaccine.
And the board
with those, I'm assuming that the division would work with those teachers accordingly.
Absolutely. And that's another reason why I was, I think I answered Ms. Johnson's question earlier when she asked, are we going to push it out to March 31st? Well, while it's getting this survey results for our tier 1 teachers, we can come back to the board and say, it would be in our best interest to support our teachers because we have 18 that are identified, or you may only have 3 that are identified, to be able to push that, to get that tax credit for March 31st. So, but I have to look at the data first.
Any other questions for Dr. Sterling? So it looks like for right now, what we're looking at is the intention is to remain virtual for the third 9 weeks, if it is the will of the board, with that data coming back to us from the survey in early February. And of course, all the data coming back to us prior by that March regularly scheduled board meeting.
Correct.
So do we have a motion in regards to Dr. Sterling's proposed phase-in plan?
I move to accept it as stated.
A second.
We have a motion and we have a second. Any discussion?
Yes, I have a question. Is that as stated with the revision to come back on March 18th? Or as it is laid out?
As Dr. Sterling stated it.
So with the remaining, let me clarify, just point of clarification, Dr. Shelton, to remain virtual for the third 9 weeks with that data to come back to us from the parent survey in February, and then all other data by that final board meeting in March. Would that be correct?
Yes.
Does that clarify, Ms. Johnson?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Okay. Any further discussion? We have a motion and a second on the floor. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. And of course, nays and abstentions have the same opportunity.
Bob Holt, Ward 1, aye.
Marshall Williams, Ward 4, aye.
Andrea Shelton, Ward 5, aye.
Jerry McCreary, Ward 6, aye.
Carrie Johnson at large, aye.
Amy Phillips, Ward 2, aye. That motion carries. So we will be virtual for the third 9 weeks with that data to be coming back to us as it's available, Dr. Sterling.
Thank you on behalf of the teachers, administrators, and families. Thank you so much. We really appreciate this. I think I lost my agenda.
I will add while you're looking for that, Dr. Sterling, because I think
Okay.
up next is VHSL, that, I feel like that's a very smart idea and decision based upon, we've all been watching and we've seen the COVID data for our surrounding communities over the last week and a half. And then today, today's numbers that came out had Suffolk right next door to us with 400 new cases today. So, we can't be just concerned with what's happening in our area, because what happens around us ends up trickling into us. So we've got to be very cognizant of that.
Right. Next, we have Fhs Athletic Reentry. There's been a lot of discussion and wanted to bring it to the board. If you're not in school, why are you having athletics? Well, we do things to support our children in Franklin. We don't play follow the leaders. A lot of time we are the leaders. So when we're looking at our children's mental health, socialization, isolation, and we're getting calls of students, really not thriving as they should, reinstating our athletic program, even though we are not in school, has actually improved the grades of a lot of our students, the socialization. And I'm just really pleased when I kind of pushed, the principal a little bit and say, I'm really thinking about, maybe revisiting this. And he told me to hold on. So with that said, I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Phelps. And Mr. Phelps, I want you to lead into your video documentation of how you're working the plan that the board approved, as well as the VDOE for athletics. Mr. Phelps?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Dr. Sterling, and thank you, school board. I was asked to give an update on Virginia High School League, the reentry plan. And one thing I'll say about an update today is it'll be different tomorrow. And athletics and academics and everything, it just seems to change daily. But I will say that Franklin High School has, I'm proud to say, and I give a lot of credit to Coach Gamble and Coach Smith, our assistant athletic director, all of our coaches, our student athletes. We have truly been a leader in the state on bringing students back to activities and athletics in a safe way, keeping safety the #1 priority. Our students thank me every single day, and they want to thank you. So I'm going to be quiet because I got together with our coaches and athletic directors, and I said, how can we do this in a different way that we don't just show another PowerPoint? So here is our creative way to show you that we are implementing the COVID safety plan, and we're not just talking about it. I want you to see evidence of what we're actually doing, and we truly are leaders in the state on this.
Oh, that turned up the sound. Ms. Moore, I think Mr. Phelps should be talking at this time, right?
Okay, well, I tell you what I can do, Dr. Sterling. I have my script that I pre-recorded.
I think we should, Ms. Moore, do we have the sound for his video?
I'm sorry, I had my voice muted. So let's restart.
Yes, please, because it was excellent. Travis was so amazing.
Okay, hold on. Here we go. Start over.
All right.
Good evening, Dr. Sterling and members of the Franklin City School Board. Thanks to your support, Franklin High School is participating in the Virginia High School League's Season 1 Winter Sports and Activities. As promised, we are strictly adhering to the 2020-2021 guidelines for return to participation and the Virginia High School League guidelines for reopening sports and activities documents. As you know, we incorporated these documents into our local plan, which was approved by the Franklin City School Board and the Virginia Department of Education. The safety plan that we are following is in accordance with guidelines from the Governor's Office, Virginia Department of Health, and Virginia Department of Education. The Virginia High School League and Franklin City Public Schools believe in the benefits of athletic and activity participation for our students. Physical activity and athletic competition are an important part of the high school experience and are essential to the physical and mental well-being of our students. Our #1 priority is the safety and health of our students. Our coaches and administrators have planned extensively and are working tirelessly to implement the plan to make sure we are safely providing opportunities for our students to participate in VHSL athletics and activities. I was asked to review our safety plan and give an update on how it is going so far. Instead of another PowerPoint, we decided to jazz it up and take another route. Please enjoy the pictures documenting us implementing our safety plan and a few messages straight from our impressive student athletes. Our students are the reason we all do what we do, so I wanted you to hear straight from them. We are providing evidence of our screening process, temperature checks, social distancing, hand sanitizing, mask wearing, and other mitigation strategies used at practices and games. Please reach out to me if you have any further questions or concerns regarding our VHSL athletics and activities program. Thank you to our athletic directors, coaches, administrators, and student athletes for making safety our #1 priority. And thank you for your continued support of the Franklin Broncos.
Okay, so I just want everyone to see evidence. I want you to see the evidence of us implementing our plan. And also a side benefit of this whole thing is that we kind of have had practice of what to do when we bring students back in a hybrid fashion. We've kind of practiced with our student athletes, and we've learned some lessons along the way that we'll definitely implement if and when we get to the phase where we bring students back for education as far as the math and English is concerned. Our students are definitely, their grades are improving because of this. I've met with students in my office. I pull them right out of basketball practice and wrestling practice, and we come in my office and we look at grades. We send emails to teachers asking for makeup work. The coaches are staying on top of the students. And I just really feel like we made the right decision to do this. And we know that, and I've told our student athletes and coaches to appreciate every practice and every game they get to play, because this thing could end at any moment. And if it happens that way, we totally understand, because we know we have to make decisions that are with the safety in mind of our students. But also keep in mind, not just their health as far as COVID is concerned, but their mental health and their emotional and their social health, because a lot of our students have been struggling with that. Ms. Massenberg and Dr. Jones stay on the phone all day long, counseling students and families that are really struggling with the isolation and that side of COVID. So at least for our student athletes, it's helped with that. And we just want to thank you for your support, and not just going along with what everybody else around us seems to have been doing. So are there any questions for me? I know it's been a long meeting. I've got lots of documents there attached because I wanted you to have, I wanted you to see everything that we're considering when we put together this plan, all the stuff from the Virginia High School League, the Department of Education. You had already seen that PowerPoint, but we updated as a living document. For example, now we're only allowed to have 25 people in the gym, or 25 spectators in the gym, whereas before, when I presented this, we could have 250. A lot of the information is the same. We meet with the Virginia High School League, Mr. Gamble and I do 2 or 3 times a week, and I'm not exaggerating, with new updates. But I'm not complaining, because it's really helped us, and it's going to help us when we get back to regular school, the lessons we've learned and the way we've been doing things all along the way. Are there any questions for me?
Excellent.
Any questions for Mr. Fields? Mr. Phelps, I do want to thank you and your staff, and especially your athletic directors and coaches, for working with these kids. I know for some of these kids, athletics is what drives them, and getting them back into somewhat of a routine helps get them back on track with that educational process as well. So thank you for all that you do for athletics, and thank you for stepping up to the table and working with these kids and doing it in as safe of a way as possible.
And thank you. And I'll say again, we're using this. I don't want you to feel like we're just all about athletics. I know you don't feel that, but I don't want to come across like that. We are using athletics to improve these students' academics. And it is a motivator for some of our students. Some of our basketball players and cheerleaders and wrestlers started practice on November the 30th with 4 Fs. And now some of them are still struggling, but at least they're passing. What I'm trying to say is it's helping them academically as well as socially and emotionally. It's not just about, it really has nothing to do with winning games or anything like that. We're using this as a way to bring our students back into the fold and do something positive and improve their academics.
Great job. Okay.
Thank you for your hard work.
It's hard work. All right.
And I will point out, Mr. Phelps, you said one thing that I've been thinking all along. Athletics is a great test model for us to use for looking at reentry of students, because if we can carry out athletics in a safe way,
right,
with little, if any, spread of COVID, then that is very reassuring for me that we can get kids back in the classroom in a very safe way as well.
Well, thank you, Madam Chairwoman. That concludes the superintendent's presentation and updates. And also thank you all for your feedback. We'll go back as a team and make certain that we have all the documents and answer questions for the next meeting. Thank you again.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sterling. As always, it was a lot of information, but it was a lot of good information and a lot of areas covered. Your team is doing an outstanding job.
They're amazing. Thank you.
Yeah.
Next up is business by school board members. We've got a few things out there. We're going to start it off with 9.1, which is the Charles Street Gym. Mr. McCreary, I will let you take the floor on that one and take the lead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is Jerry McCreary, Ward 6. I have spoke with Mr. Clyde Parker. I believe I know the board is familiar with Mr. Parker. He's a resident of Franklin. He, to me, is a local amateur local historian that's very knowledgeable. And if you know, he's come before the board before to talk about the Charles Street Gym, and he's familiar with that facility. I'm getting caught up on the status of that. I don't necessarily want to go into a long discussion about the gym tonight, but I'm actually looking for recommendation as to whether to have a small committee meet to determine what some action steps may be appropriate. I've listed a few of his questions that Mr. Parker had. One of the leak at the front right of the building has been addressed. He had questions about ongoing maintenance. He's also indicated he's willing to volunteer to pursue any available grants to help maintain the structure. And I believe he's said he's been pursuing volunteer help to help maintain the facility if that would be acceptable. So I'm looking from the board, the rest of the board members, your recommendation as far as would it be appropriate to form a committee to discuss and come back to the full board with recommendations?
All right, let's break it down into a few chunks and let's tackle it that way.
Okay.
I guess first I would ask Dr. Sterling, do you know what the status is on the leak? I know that from my previous experience, it is not the roof that is leaking. We've had that reviewed and it's not the roof. So do we know the status on that?
Yes, Mr. Ryder, are you still with us?
Yes, I am.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. I know you've been working with Mr. Custer, and I'm glad that that this question has been proposed, because I know we have a facilities, finance and facilities committee. So, Mr. McQuarrie, we do have a committee that can this information can actually go to, because there's a lot of information, a lot of documents, a lot of repairs have been started before I was superintendent. So this will give you a lot of background. I know we don't have time to go into it tonight, but we can refer that if the board so chooses to committee. But to answer your question, Mr. Ryder, can you give us a brief update on that?
Absolutely. The questions 1 through 4, yeah, the leak at the front right of the building, it has been addressed. It has been fixed. We needed to clean out the traps on the top of the building. It's not a roof leak. It was kind of like a drain leak, and they have since cleaned them out, because when they get bogged up, they start to overflow where they're not supposed to. So they have been cleaned out, and Dan Custer, every time it rains, he goes over and checks to see. And the water is trapped in a barrel. It's kind of like a above ground sump pump deal, and so they just empty out the barrel. But we haven't seen that thing filled up in months now. And ongoing maintenance. Just today, Dan sent me the 2017 structural review of the building. It's just a 6-page thing. 4 of the pages are just pictures. And the building is structurally sound, but there's some things that probably could be repaired. A vendor by the name of Windsor Homes did a lot of the repairs back in 2017, and they're still there. The repairs are still holding good. So yeah, it does have its maintenance done, just like any of our buildings. And then items 3 and 4 is something that we should probably talk about at the committee and let the board decide whether we should go ahead with that. So if it would please the board tonight, I would like to take this entire inquiry and put it to the finance committee on the last Wednesday of this month, and I'll put this at the top of the list.
And that is actually what I was going to suggest with everything else, besides just addressing the question of the leak. The other items, 2 through 4, and then the questions at the bottom would all go before Building and Grounds Committee. And also, if you're looking at long term, you're looking at that's part of that capital improvement plan that we've been discussing. So that would have to be worked into that. And part of Building and Grounds would sit on that as well. So that's where I would say we need to take the rest of that and figure out from that how we proceed with the current, which is going to be that 2 through 4. And then the other ones would technically fall under capital improvement. One other thing that I would add, Mr. McCreary, I know we gave you a reprieve for your first year on the board, but I really think Building and Grounds may be something that you may entertain sitting on if you so feel moved. I think that may help you have a hand in that discussion and be fully informed on that, if that is something you would entertain.
Yes, yeah, I would. Yes.
Nice.
So that's Mr. Holt and I both sit on that through June 30th. And I would have no problem with transitioning off of that board at that time if you are interested in transitioning on. And you and I can get together and discuss that a little bit more and see if there's something we can do in the meantime so that you're in that conversation.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Is there anything else you had in regards to that, or is that good for now?
Well, so to clarify, when would this be addressed then? So if I'm asked.
We have a building and grounds meeting the 27th, I think it is, Mr. Ryder,
This month?
of this month.
Okay.
So we would be looking at it at that building and grounds committee meeting. And then I can, once we meet, I can easily get up with you and fill you in. And then of course I'll fill the board in at the next meeting as well.
All right, that sounds good. Thank you. All right, well, that satisfies my inquiry.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, 9.2 Governance Handbook. Mr. Holt, I'll let you take the lead on that one.
Yes, I have gotten quite a bit of responses from the board. I have not put it all together in the form of an update, and I will do that. And I will have that for our next board meeting. But it's coming along really well. Thank you for everyone for your support.
Thank you for taking the lead on that. And if you have anything that you need to get to Mr. Holt over the next few days, get that to him so that he can compile that. Not to say rush and break your neck to do so, but if you had anything you wanted to go ahead and get to him, go ahead and do so. Next up would be 9.3, business by school board members. Do any school board members have anything to share? Anything from committees? Anything for the good of the board?
I saw an email, and I think it was actually this morning. It was from VSBA, and it regarded School Board U. So I kind of investigated that, and essentially there are a lot of short courses, videos on topics of interest to school board members. And I looked at it, and there's just a lot of good information there. So if you have a question about the budgeting process, the superintendent's evaluation, all those kinds of things, you can go and click on School Board U, and I guarantee you there's a topic there that you can gain a lot of valuable information. So I would recommend you take a look at that.
That's very good that you brought that up, Mr. Holt. And just so that board members are aware as well, if you go out to VSBA's website and go on their, I think it's their training page, it's the last option out there. I'm working like 3 electronic devices at one time, so bear with me. And see, there goes Miss Moore. Miss Moore's trying to beat me to it. But if you go out, it's under meetings and conferences, under the webinars. There's actually some free webinars out there. And you can look at those. I think you still have to register, but they're free. And it's going to be the on-demand ones, of course, not the live ones. It wasn't very many, but there are some. So you may find some of that information useful.
Okay.
And there's a link there as well to visit the School Board U.
Yeah, School Board U requires a password, and I will be happy to give you that if you will email me.
There you go. See, for instance, there's one, not that would pertain to us right now, but filling vacancies on elected school boards. Go open Virginia answers for what, why, and how. There was another one. There's a few out there that are free, but also if there is something that you do find in there that you feel is of use to you that you would like to be to view, even if it is an expense to that, we do budget for some professional development. And that's what this counts as. So you can absolutely get in contact with Ms. Moore and get registered for those.
I am also attending the legislative session training. It's on the 25th. And it's kind of a misnomer. It's more about finance, I think, than it is about legislation, but it does talk about current proposals in the General Assembly and what the SBA's position is on that kind of thing. So it's very good. And I'll give you a report on that. Also, as you know, our assistant principal at the high school, Ms. Harris Mohammed, is now a board member in Richmond, and she will be attending that new board orientation for new members. So she's excited about that.
Yeah, now Dr. Harris Mohammed. So congratulations to her, not only on her appointment to, election to the Richmond School Board, but also on her attaining her doctorate. So that's a double congratulations for her.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Yes, this is Jerry. It's Ward 6. I have a question maybe for Dr. Sterling. Is there a typical way to reach out to parents, families in my ward as far as getting feedback from their, so I can better represent them? Oh, you need some sound.
Well,
That's
yeah, I was just
excellent
thinking.
question, but I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. Typically, trust me, they hit when they want to talk, they seek you out. But actually, because of course, student data, we really don't dabble in student data, which is where you would get contact information to reach out to them.
Or could if the board office sends out emails to families, can you segment it by ward?
No.
No?
Yeah, the data, because the ward maps are not built into the school division software, so we really couldn't do that.
Okay.
But yeah, typically, because our job, that steps over that governance role of getting into the student data and accessing that, because that's really beyond our scope. The constituents would need to contact you. Now, whether you went so far as to host some sort of town hall or forum where they could meet you, that would be something that, of course, minding COVID guidelines, you could probably do. I don't know how to facilitate that, because we've never done something like that before in the past. But that would be a suggestion.
Okay.
I guess you could write a letter to the Tidewater News indicating you're the representative for Ward 6, and you'd be happy to talk to anyone.
That is a great suggestion.
Yeah, that's a good, all right, that's very good. That's the kind of advice I was looking for. Thank you.
Honestly, I thought when I first went on the board that I would get inundated with phone calls and complaints and all of that, but you really don't. At least I don't. So.
No, I know.
Yeah.
My thinking was if we had to do how the city does. I know in my ward we've had meetings with our ward representative, and which I thought was helpful just to hear from the community. And but I do like the idea of submitting a letter to the newspaper. So that's good. That's a good.
And that may open the door where some do contact you, and then from there you can look at ways to have maybe those meetings with your constituents.
Right, and that would be something they could set up themselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's the main thing. The main thing was more of trying to establish some introduction.
Well, when Barry Cheatham was on city council, he kind of had an agreement with me that if he got a comment about the school system, he would pass it on to me. And he and I were able to answer questions, and he would always call them back. He just wanted to know what he'd heard and get the real story from me. And that system worked really well.
Right.
And that is a strong suggestion to work closely with your city council ward representative, because of course, you know, what the schools have an impact on the city, and the city has an impact on the schools. So we want to be sure that we're working together as well in any way that we can.
Exactly. All right, that's a good. I'll take both those suggestions. Those are very good. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else? I only have one quick, and I do mean quick, update. The Appomattox Regional Governor's School Board met today, and this is the first meeting we've had since early December. And after our December meeting, actually on the 18th, we received the resignation letter of the executive director of the Appomattox Regional Governor's School. He is taking another position actually with VDOE. So ARGS is in the midst of a search for a new executive director. Also today, as part of that meeting, the ARGS board voted to not return to in-person instruction. So in other words, to remain completely virtual through at least the third 9 weeks. They also voted to not participate in athletics for the third 9 weeks as well. And part of that decision was because it's a little bit different for ARGS because they don't have their own transportation. So students would have to rely solely upon their own form of transportation to get to and from practices as well as meets. And some of those meets are more than an hour and a half away from the school building. So from an equity standpoint, the board chose, and because they were still going to be virtual, the board chose to not participate in athletics. So I just wanted to let everyone know. And looking at overall, the majority of their divisions right now are still fully virtual anyways, the contributing divisions. So that is my update from that. And our own Dr. Sterling is actually sitting on the steering committee for that, looking at the applicants for the executive director. So that is all I have. Anything else? If not, moving down to the next thing, we have upcoming events. Of course, we are closed Monday to honor Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. So all school offices will be closed and kids will have no school that day. Because of the way January runs, that does mean that because we met this week, we have 2 weeks back to back. So next Thursday will be our regular meeting. Closed session will be at 6 o'clock. Open will be at 7. Also Friday, January the 29th is a teacher work day. So there will be no class for students on that day. And then of course that will lead us into February. Anything else? All right, that takes us to 10.1. So we're going to do this. We're going to do this by motion this time. I usually ask for, if there are no objections, but we're going to do a motion this time because I did see that at one point Miss Smith did join us, and I wanted to make sure she was on record having been here. So do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move to
moved.
adjourn.
Can I count that as a motion and a second?
Second.
Yes.
Third.
Any discussion?
No.
None.
All right, so we're going to take a vote by ward. So moving by ward, all those in favor signify by saying aye. And of course, nays and abstentions have the same opportunity and will have to stay on the Zoom all night.
Ward 1 aye.
All right, Ms.
Marcia.
Smith, Ward 3.
Who's that?
Oh.
Ms. Smith, Ms. Smith, are you there? You'll need to unmute yourself.
Aye.
All right.
All right.
Marshall Williams, Ward 4, aye.
Andrea Shelton, Ward 5, aye.
Jerry McCreary, Ward 6, aye.
Carrie Johnson at large, aye.
And Amy Phillips, Ward 2, aye. Thank you very much, everyone, for bearing with us tonight. Thank you very much, fellow board members, for all that you've sat through tonight. And I will see you next